Hey, what's up guys? Today I wanted to show you how I recreated this ice shot from a famous commercial. Let's get into it. So first I dive into the first geo container here, which I called asset prep, though at the end it was a bit misleading maybe because I also built the smoke simulation in here. But let me just quickly show you how that works. So I used the curve, which then I transformed to get it to the right size. I used the attribute wrangle to change the normal, and I mirrored that. Then I mirrored that again, so I get the how's it called, the wood handle for the ice, and I fused that. Then I extruded that in the direction of the normal I set in the attribute wrangle. So I have a little bit of thickness. I fused that again. I filled that. So I made end caps here, and I recomputed the normals. I beveled that, so I get a soft edge, and I grouped it so I can split it later, and I transformed it again to get it into the center, and I match size it. All right, so next we have the ice. So again, same deal. I made the curve smaller. Then I set it normal, mirrored it, extruded it, fused it, filled the end caps, added normal, and I beveled it. And at the start I had just the one face as a front and back, but it was causing problems with the displacement. So what I did was I grouped it like here. Where are we? No idea why I grouped it 2 times. Let's delete that. And after that, match size, same deal. And I remeshed it, so I get a high resolution for the displacement map. And after the remesh, I have to regroup it so that because the topology changed and the attributes aren't carried to the next. So now we have the group as well on here. But I used this geometry before the remesh as a collision source. So it has a less, it isn't as expensive to compute. So I did 2 things. First, I used the collision source to create the VDB representation as well as the standard geometry representation with the velocity on it. And these 2 I used for 2 things. First, I used them for the flip simulation. So I'll show you in a bit. Let's carry on with the geometry first. So I merged the handle and the ice, transformed it again so it is in the position where I want it to be. I used the connectivity node to set a class attribute. Before I had a for loop here to UV texture it, but I changed it. So right now the connectivity doesn't fulfill any purpose, to be honest. I think the textures are still applied by the class attribute, so I'm gonna leave it for now. But you don't need this one. But after I merged it, I split it again to UV texture it. Like I said before, I used one loop to texture both of it, but right now I'm using the split and giving it textures in 2 ways. So this one I did a little bit different because I mostly wanted the shots from here, so I wanted the smooth wrapping around the corners. The backside wasn't as important, so there's the seams. And for the handle, it was pretty simple. So this was before in the for loop, I just used a UV unwrap. And after that, I merged it again, and here we have the render geometry. So I can use the name attribute from the groups, or the 2 groups, to apply the textures. And yeah, so besides that, I also have another collision source geometry here, which I use the peak to enlarge. Let me just show you quickly. So if I display this, you see it's a bit thicker, and I use that. I also blasted this one. I use that as a target for the fluid at the start, but at the end I felt like it didn't make too much sense, or I liked the result better without the target force. So that's offline at the moment. So we have the render geometry, and we have the collision geometry here, which also the handle isn't inside because we use the basic geometry from here. So next, I'm going to show you this later. This is a smoke simulation. But what I did next was the fluid simulation. So you can go to the shelf up here. So let me just quickly change this to the standard. What we have here is the shelves for the presets, and for the fluid stuff, it's often really useful to use some of the presets to get started, just to set up all the networks. So what I did for this one was, I think, just emit particle fluid, and what it created is this emission source. So we have a sphere here, which I'm going to display. It's a bit stretched, so if we click on it, I use the sinus curve with some modifications to animate it. So if I play this, you see it moves using the sinus curve. And what it will do is just move the emitter left and right. So there's a bit of motion. Also, yeah, like I stretched it a bit, rotated it a bit, and I experimented with the box as well and transform, but that wasn't really giving me the results I wanted. So next we have a mountain here to break it up even more. You can animate that by just clicking here on animation, and you will get a bit more breakup in your source. Then we created, or the preset created a DOP source from that, so flip DOP source, where you can set the voxel size by hand, but the standard is linked to the particle separation, but I set it by hand because I changed it midway, but I think this was the same result as well. So yeah, here's the linked parameters already created by the preset, so you don't have to link anything anymore. That saves a bit of work. I use the attribute noise to noise the, let me show you the velocity a bit, so it isn't as uniform. So if we disable that, you see they all get really straight. But like this, it's a bit more broken up. I don't know if you can see, but yeah. Alright, then we have the emission source, which is here. And this gets fed into the DOP network here, which also gets created by the preset. Let me jump to the start frame. And what we have here is the particles created from the emitter, which, let me hide these for a bit, which, first off, we have the flip object, where nothing is linked, but the particle separation and the physical attributes. Here you can set the particle separation you want, as well as the other stuff like the physical attributes, which for me, I turned on the viscosity and also set it to 200. You can set the viscosity here, so add viscosity attribute, and I set it to 200 because that worked fine for me. The volume source is where the emitter sources the particles into, so this will already be created by the emitter, by the preset up here, and if not, like if you want to create it by hand, you can use the presets in here as well. So just click source flip and it will set most of it up. So you just have to link the emission source up here. All right, then that gets fed into a subsolver here, where I modify the viscosity, but I'm not quite sure if it was working. I have to check that, but I got the results I wanted, so I just left it be, to be honest. I need to check that because I think there's something wrong with the way I'm trying to modify it. As you can see, the viscosity attribute here doesn't show as well. But yeah, you don't need that, so just ignore that for a bit. I fed it all into Solva, where here I modified the substeps a bit. I went a bit higher, so 2 and 4. I add an ID attribute and an age attribute. So the age attribute to texture, which at the end I didn't use, but you can use it to drive like texture maps, changing the color by, for example, if the chocolate gets poured and it slowly dries, it gets a bit brighter. You can use that to, you can use the age to drive that, as well as the ID attribute, which because I turned off reseeding, we still have the same particles, because for a bit I experimented with using a little crocant, like the little little nut pieces, which are in the chocolate cover of some ice creams. So they are usually just in the fluid, and I just copied them to the certain particles, but I also didn't like that result from that, so I left it out later in the final result, but I used the ID attribute to get the right particles here. Also, what is really important if you want to UV map the fluid, to set the rest attribute. In the volume motion, I didn't change, or I changed some things, I guess. First off, I used stick on collision, so it gives a bit more the expression of the fluid sticking to the ice impression. And I turned on the viscosity, which we already discussed a bit earlier, and in the surface tension I set that to 2. I experimented with these numbers a bit, so the results may vary which on what type of simulation you're doing. So just try these out, play a bit with the viscosity, the surface tension, till you get something you like. Then I wired in the collision object here. You can use a static object for that. Just wire the geometry in here. So at the asset prep, I showed you that we have the collision geometry and the VDB representation of that, which I used here in collisions, RBD solver, and then set this to volume sample and put the volume in here, which will help with the collisions a lot. All right, next, let me check this. I think I turned down, no, the gravity is still active. But yeah, that's it for the solver. Like I said, I experimented also with the target force. So you can set a suction force for the fluid, so it gets attracted by geometry as a target, a movement target. But I didn't like the result. I preferred it without the suction force. I experimented with that a bit, but yeah, I didn't end up using it, so it's just turned off right here. All right, we're almost done. So next we have the particle fluid tab, which is, or node, which is the one where the surface gets created. This also gets created by the preset up here. So what I did was, for the nut pieces or the crocant pieces, I use the particles directly, because the compression deletes the particles inside of the fluid, so it just keeps the surface particles, which also makes the basically is the same as you get the same problem like when you reseed, so you don't have a constant point count, so the point count is changing. But I want to have the particles remain alive while the simulation is running, so I instantly cached it, and then I used here, it's just a quick, I created let me just show you. So I created a box with some divisions. I transformed it a bit, mounted, used the mountain swap, created the VDB, smoothed that a bit, converted it back to polygons, and set some normals, some UVs. I assembled that, which right now it's not perfect, but yeah, it looks like a bit of a little crocant piece. I think it's crocant in English as well, I'm not sure, to be honest. But what I also did, I randomized an attribute which I called cube, and what I did was I fed particles in here. So yeah, I'll just turn that off for a bit. I fed the particles in here, and maybe there's something cached still. Oh yeah. There we have the particles. So I fed them into the first attribute randomize. I call the attribute cube, and I set the probability of the cube attribute being 1 to 0.003, which is to not copy a cube onto every other points. So I just wanted to copy the cube onto some points. So I set the probability here for attribute, which I'm going to use to drive that. Then I set random orientation and random p-scale. I set a attribute from piece's name to on the how's it called, on the cube, which if I had used multiple different versions of this, I could use this name attribute to copy different ones, but right now it's not important. So it uses the different names here, the different geometries, which right now is just one, to assign a random one to all of the points. But right now there's just one. So then you can see here on some of the points the cube gets copied. And right now the different random values for the p-scale aren't that big, so it does not look like it's varying a lot, but let me show you the orient and the p-scale off. So right now the direction follows the normal of the points, and like this it's a bit more random. Then I copied them like I said, and packed them as well. I unpacked them to trail them and get the crocant out to render it. I also used the VDB representation to use as a collision, which I subtracted from the fluid. But like I said, I didn't end up using that. So let me turn this off again. Just if you want to do it, you're free to. So we have the actual fluid coming in here. It gets compressed, then it gets cached, and it goes into the particle fluid surface. All these nodes get created for you with the preset. And in the fluid surface, I limited or refine the refine iterations so it doesn't flicker too much. I also bumped up the resolution quite a lot, so it's really high resolution here. Don't change the particle separation. It's set by the attribute it's set in the simulation. And I changed the influence scale a bit to get a bit smoother results. And what I also did, I turned on the adaptivity. It gets better in the results. I used the rest attributes here. So I transferred the rest attributes and the age attributes to the surface to a UV textured, as well as use the age maybe later to texture it. In the filtering, here's the results, the settings I used. Besides that, I subtracted the collisions. Right now it's only the ice which I subtracted, but before I did the crocant as well. Yeah, so we have that. Then I colored it to get to see it better in the viewport here. I smoothed the normal and the position of it, so to make it just more smooth overall. I cached that. I set the new normal as well again. Also, I turned up the cusp angle a lot to make it even smoother. I used another smooth for the normal because it was still flickering quite a bit. But this one worked alright, I guess, from a certain distance. And I set the UV attribute by the rest. And next I used the UV quick shade just to see the UV texture on it. Alright, and that's almost it. Thing is still missing. So we have the fluid to render, we have the geometry to render. Only thing missing is the fire. Not the fire, but the smoke simulation. So we have the collision geometry here, right? And I fed that. I also used the preset here to create from the surface here. So since there's no handle wired in, we don't need this blast. But before I blast the handle away, then it sets a pyro source, so it creates points on the surface. Then it creates some density on these points, some temperature and burn. and it rasterizes them. And then we have the pyro solver here. I think I turned some stuff off just to not get the fire, because I don't need the flame. Yeah, I just needed the smoke, and I wired in the collision geometry here for the this is the fluid surface. So let me go to some frame up here, I guess. We have the collision geometry here, as well as the collision from the ice gets set by as well. But yeah, we have this. Then we wire that into the pyro. That's the simulation. So I changed some stuff here. I'm not going to go over all of it, so you can just quickly take a look if you wanted to recreate the same thing. And I also adjusted it a bit in the look. Not much though, to be honest. I cached it, which for pyro simulations always is a bit of a pain, but whatever. I just wanted to have a quicker render. And after that, I just see I didn't use... Oh, don't have internal collisions, I just realized. But yes, so what I did is I cached it and I used this to render. And yeah, that's it from the stuff I created. It's really simple, quite fast. I think it took like 3 days to get something which I was fine with. And then I rendered it in Karma, so on the stage here. You can see also the new Vulkan viewport is a lot more performant. I really like that, although I've already noticed some bugs which are quite annoying. But yeah, so first off, let's quickly switch to Solaris here. So I have two cameras, one for the close-up, one for the further shot. So let's go to this one. I don't use too many lights. I wanted to recreate the shot, so I used a similar lighting, probably a bit different. I also have this background light, which wasn't in the original shot, which I recreated. But I wanted, for the close-up, I wanted to get a bit more, a bit background lighting here, because it was just going under the background. So yeah. Yeah, let me just quickly explain. We have the rim lights here. So if I just quickly save this and swap to Karma. So what we have is the two rim lights here, these and these. They come from behind, so they create this nice light edge, which helps to separate the product from the background. Then we have this one key light here, which comes slightly from the side, but from the front, to give the to light up this main side of the product. And then we have the two lights for the background, which is this one, and they just directly shine onto the background, which I just used a giant grid for. So quickly switch back to this one. And yeah, there we have the grid. Just really simple. And yeah, that's basically all of it. I have one more spotlight up here just to give the chocolate a bit more structure. So up here it creates a bit more of these lines at the corners to give it a bit more structure. But a really simple lighting setup, to be honest. All right, then how did I use them? Or I assigned the materials using the material linker, where you just have all your materials and all the objects. You can use in the ice, I used the groups to texture. So I just you can go to the, if you import using the SOP import, you can set subset groups, and then you can use the groups to assign the materials. The materials are in themselves also really basic, so just a standard pyro, Karma Pyro material with the density modified a bit, as well as the shadow density. Nothing more. Then for the ice, this one is a bit more complicated, but I'm not quite happy with it, so I'm still trying to improve the ice material. If we switch this on for a second, you can see I used some noises, some stretch noises, as well as some noises to blend between noises to get this this stretched lines of bumps, which I just wired the noises into the. I remapped them a bit and mixed them a bit to end up with this result as a displacement. I also have some fine noise to get the little like almost hair type of ice look on the surface. For the color was really simple, to be honest. I just let me just quickly look into it. I just mixed a bit of brighter and a bit of darker color. Before I used the color correction where with the color set, and I wired it into the gamma of the color, but I wasn't I wasn't happy enough with it to use it, so this one is a lot simpler. Just wire in a remake from noise and use that to drive the color, so the darker, or to mix it using the noise between the foreground color and the background color. Alright, then we have the specula. Also, I use the noises to drive this where it's more specular and where less specular, but again, I'm not too happy with this material, so yeah, probably don't copy too much of it. But it's the basic principles that work with every shader, so yeah. Next, we have the material for this handle. So basically, I just download the material. I also did a setup to get a logo burnt in here, which again, I liked it without the logo. Also, since I recreated the shot, I didn't feel like it made sense to burn a different logo into the handle. So yeah, this one is offline at the moment. But so I just used the UV transform. Then I transformed an image, which I just transformed it to be at this position. I set a color here, so the default color outside of the as a constant. So outside of the map here, the color gets set to white. So if I, where is it? If I multiply that, only, oh, I also inverted it here, I think. No, did I invert it? No, I didn't. But whatever. Basically, you use the two values here. So I use for the logo, I use the black and white as well, and then I multiplied that with the rest of the setup to only create them, basically to create a mask where the logo should be, and then you can color that and use it in the displacement as well. Yeah, all of that. For this texture, I also just downloaded the image texture and I modified it a bit. So I modified the hue and the saturation a bit, and yeah, not difficult, not anything further from basic, I guess. The crocant, where here I just use the gamma, a noise to drive the gamma, which worked quite fine, to be honest, and I just wired it into the base color. Yeah, was fine. Then we have the chocolate. The chocolate also really simple. I used two noises again. I can just use this because I have the UV attribute, so I don't need to wire in anything. But I use the noises and I mixed them a bit, and I did this to create this. Let me show you. Like this kind of little difference in the roughness. So you get this like fluid surface type of look, which you often see in real life. If you look exactly at the surface, like there's a really thin layer where the surface interacts with the air and creates this like a bit of surface. And yeah, also I had displacement before, but I turned it off because it was looking a bit more tasty with a smoother surface. So the only thing modified is the specular roughness. Alright then, this is basically everything. We have the lights here, we have the cameras here, We have a light linker here, so I think I excluded something. Yeah, I excluded one light from the background, so you can use the linker here to link the lights to different objects, so they only affect them. And then I rendered it with the basic settings. I instantly denoise in the render, and I set aces as export. Color, I used a bit of a new adaptive sampling, but yeah, that's it basically. So we have a 30 minutes recording already, so I'm gonna see if I can cut this down a bit, but yeah, that's the whole setup. If you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comments, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye.